Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to EML F2. We are at round 5, the halfway point of the season, and we are finding ourselves in the desert of Doha at Lusail, the Qatar Grand Prix. I'm your host, your main commentator, Lesty, as usual, always here every week, and we'll be bringing you all the action together with my co-commentator alongside me, Scott.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back, of course, EML round 5. That's mad to think we're on the 5th halfway mark of this season here on F2, and what a season it's been so far. Like you say, in Doha tonight for the Qatar Grand Prix, and I believe I'm right in saying this will be the first time EML has made an appearance here.
You would be right. It's our first appearance at the Qatar Grand Prix. What can you expect from this Grand Prix? It's a lot of on-the-throttle racing. So DRS here is hard to come by. Sorry, not DRS, the battery. Battery is hard to come by here. So if you're going to use a lot of that, harvesting that is going to take you a few laps at least to build up a decent size battery to use for any potential overtakes. Only one DRS zone, and that is the long home straight, as you can see on the bottom right hand of your screen as we see the track map, and you'll see a lot of moves going down there into turn 1. Another thing we may see a lot of is a lot of track limit penalties, with a lot of heavy throttle turns. Brings some of these guys wide and really testing the limits of this Qatar Grand Prix track. So one to look out for, and we should also see some very, very good battling. But for now, I'm going to go on board with Dara and Scott, if you're up to it, if you're able to take us round on a lap of the Qatar Grand Prix.
An absolute pleasure to take you around this Lusail International Circuit, of course. 5.4 kilometres, 3.3 miles long. The one DRS, like you said, this big rundown towards turn number 1, which you see Dara taking very, very nicely. A little bit of the exit curve there that you can use, and a little bit of entrance curve for the left-hander of 2 as well. That is really the key to getting a very, very fast lap time in here. It's about using as much as those limits as you can without stepping over the mark. Double right-hander then of 4 and 5. But before we get into the closest thing we've got to a hard braking zone here, it's the hairpin-esque of turn number 6. Watch out for some moves later on in the evening down into there. Right-hander of 7. We see Dara dipping down into that 4th gear. It's one of the slower corners, and still in 4th gear really gives you a taste and a flavour of what this circuit has. Left-hander of 10 then. Before the closest thing, I suppose, we've got to a back straight, a long sweeping left-hander before a very, very technical and can be tricky at times triple right-hander. 12, there's 13, and now number 14. 2 corners left then of this Qatar flying lap. The left-hander of 15. Pit entrance is on the right-hand side there. Before all that, or just after that I should say, and before you finish your lap, 16 the right-hander. Got to maximise that exit speed here, and he seems to have done a pretty good run, has Dara. Competitive so far this season, and it's going to be a 1:20.368 the first lap on the board tonight, Leslie.
Yeah, pretty good, solid lap there from Dara. Obviously one of the faster drivers we've seen this season, and one that's turned up to most races for his WR team, as we see the 2 TGT boys behind, not breaking into the 20s yet, but Snipes, Dara's teammate, joins him in the 20s with a 20.6. We have JR Damage, another man who's shown very decent pace so far this season for JR. He goes up into 120.3s as RVL also slots in on the 121.6s. Who else have we got? We've got a couple of the CPI boys. CPI currently on top in the standings. Let's see what they can do as Gogotsky comes up to the line. It's only 3rd for him with a 20.6. His teammate Igor, 20.7. So still a bit of a margin there. I was expecting a smaller gap. But Ellie Michelle has put himself up into 7th with a 1:20.7. JR Tico up into 3rd, 20.3, matching his teammates' time exactly. So JR in sync there with their lap times, and will go on board with the IRT boys of Nathan and Julian as they come up to the line.
Yep, Nathan rounding that final corner, the lead of the two IRT drivers and the Mercedes, of course. Nathan making his debut, Julian a bit of an ever-present figure. Nathan with a 20.7, Julian with a 20.7 also. But 67 thousandths, but the exact same time as Michelle B. We've got a really, really tight mid-pack, and well, from P4 down to P9, they're separated by 17 hundredths, of course. Early stages of this qualifying session, though, it's the usual names up the top. The two WR drivers, Katgowski and Igor Jelin, of course, raced at Belgium last time out, had a very, very successful qualifying race. They're up there in P4 and 5, but the JR, exactly identical times. That's not something you see very often, but to have it in P2 on the first banker runs, they are looking mighty competitive tonight. We could be looking for a brilliant little bit of team play, freeway battle, and maybe a few more drivers creeping into that. LRN Thomas then looks to be the last on an outlap. Of course, LA Tito serving a qualifying ban for Legacy Esports will start at the back, and the two LDL drivers of Nico and Aqua sitting pretty in the pits, leaving it a little bit late, of course, maybe playing a bit of strategic tyre saving going on there, Leslie. We'll wait and see with that, but the initial bankers in at 20.3. Could we, I mean, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, could we see a 19? That would be absolutely flying, I would say.
Yeah, a point I was going to come on to here, with such a long DRS straight there, is there potential for the teammates to be using a tow, and if so, could that get us into the 119s, as we see Aqua retiring as well? So I don't know whether he is also serving a qualifying ban. We'll have to see if we can get that news to you. But Thomas does start his lap for LRN, the only driver currently, actually he's got Alpha Gully on track with him, but the only driver currently trying to set a time, but he's already invalidated, so we are in a bit of a calm period in this qualifying so far. But back to my point, I believe if we see a bit of team play here, we could see a couple temps shaved off these times. I'm interested to see on these next runs. I didn't really pay much attention to see if it happened on the first runs, but let's have a look to see if that happens. Do you think we could see maybe some of these teams using each other here to gain a bit of extra time?
We did see a little bit in Belgium, of course. It's maybe an easier setup, because obviously you're kind of your best way almost. You know, you're never going to get like that double toe in effect. It's a little more trickier with that straight coming down between the pit entry and pit exit. So effectively, you need your lead car to be just starting their lap as your second car in the train, shall we say, is finishing their flying lap, or vice versa, of course. So there has got to be some kind of prioritisation. It seems as if most of the teams are just all going out at roughly the same time here, so it doesn't look to be a effect in the second stint. However, maybe IRT, or they're saying that Julian's coming out of the pits and it is a little bit early to be giving Nathan a tow. Maybe CPI, of course. Katgowski is on an outlap. Igor Jelin currently in the pits, and the two GR, they were going to be the other two. They're coming out one after the other. So maybe that's a strategy with it, a double outlap for one of the cars to give a pull down for the second car on the flying lap. LDL Nico also retiring in the pits. I was having a quick look there. I haven't been able to find anything yet, but I'll try and get some news on the LDL drivers, because both of them are retiring without setting a lap here. It's indicative to me of a quality ban, but I'll hopefully have confirmation of that very, very soon for you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I didn't see Nico even come out of the pits, so he may not even have a setup saved onto his car, his McLaren car. So interesting one to keep an eye on. We'll bring you any news we can on those retirements. But LRN Thomas, the only man not to set a lap that hasn't retired, is coming round the final corner. What time can he do? His teammate spec lap only with a 22 at the moment. Can Thomas better that for his team? Yes, he can. He goes 121 near flat. So an improvement on his teammate. I believe Lorenzo is now coming around the final. No, he's not. He's just starting his lap. Sorry, I got him mixed up there with Lorenzo and Salt. But the RVL boys, a team I've been... I'm seeing, others coming across the line, so we may see some improvements. But while I'm on RVL, it's a team I've sort of been up and down with, really. It looks like they've had some good spurts, but then also had some races that the luck hasn't really gone their way, or they haven't really performed to the level that they may have wanted to. So we'll keep an eye on. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on these guys because I want to see how well they do tonight. They'll be looking for a better outing than last week in Belgium. But Dara, one of the fastest drivers in F2 so far this season, brings his time up to a 120.2. So he's put a bit of pressure on the JR2 behind him to see if they can find some time. I believe Damage and Teco are both on a lap, are they? I'm not too sure. I believe Damage is, but let's wait and see.
I think they both are. Tico does look to be using a bit of the ERS as he's coming through these corners. No red flashing light in the back of that Alpha Tauri, so would declare to me that both are on a flying lap. A little update then with the LDL situation. I know they have at least one qualifying ban. I couldn't see anything about a double, but definitely at least one qualifying ban for them. Explains one of the retirements away. Damage then for JR up the line as Julian goes P2 with a 3.57. 1,000 clear of JR Damage. It's a really tight qualifying session, judging by that already. Tico, what can he do on the board? Does go provisional bowl, a 20.184, 300s and 1,000s clear at the top. We're getting closer and closer to those 19s, and with maybe just time for one quick lap, you never know, we could just break into them here, Leslie.
We definitely could see us into the 19s. I'd love to see us here in F2 get into the 19s as Igor comes up to the line. It's a 120.3, puts himself back in the mix up there. It's very tight so far as Kogotsky, his teammate, pulls into the pits. A very interesting qualifying so far, and 5 rounds in. Well, we've had 3 races. One race, Australia, has been rescheduled to the break week, which was meant to be next week, but will now be the Australian Grand Prix. But after 3 rounds, this table or the standings are starting to take shape. A bit of a tongue twister there. Losing myself. But CPI are leading the way with WR just tightly behind them. I believe it's 11 points. And IRT just a bit further back, but still in contention. And JR, I would say they're a bit out of position because first round they missed and they gained a penalty. I think they got deducted some points, so they started on minus points. So they're currently in the middle with the rest of the field. That's very tightly packed together. There's barely any points between the rest of the field at the moment. But clearly today, right now, we're seeing those 4 teams looking the faster teams with LE Michelle sort of just shoved in the middle there at the moment. So it's a shootout here between 4 teams, and currently JR with Tico look to be taking pole, but still runs left here.
Yeah, absolutely. You really hit the nail on the head with that there. JR, but they've showed great pace in the races they have run. Of course, only 2 of the 3. And like you say, that points deduction maybe has them a little bit out of sync, but 4 different teams within the top 4 and 5 different teams within the top 8, I suppose, tells you 2 different stories in that way, that the top pack is a little bit mixed, but it's mixed of the same few teams. So we never know. The lead driver, the lone one in this qualifying session, Michelle B, of course, a couple of races so far this season, has shown some very good pace at times and definitely is capable of getting up there in the mix and trying to score some really good points tonight. But I think there's just over 3 minutes left on this qualifying session. We've got a couple of cars out on their final flying run, or what's likely to be their final flying run. One of those being RBL Yusoltar, I believe is how I pronounce it this week. 6 tenths up on their timer. Down on their time. I can never get that right, but 6 tenths slower than their time. Maybe going to back out here, although saying that with 25% ERS, it could be a tough ask. Alpha Gully for TGT then on a flying lap coming to the end of the first sector. 1 of a second better of their previous time, but a little bit of a tank slapper there coming out of turn number 6. Could have just melted away that gains through the second sector. Then these tight, kind of twisty, medium speed corners can be really off-road, and if you get one of them wrong, you're probably going to get the next 2 or 3 wrong here. Has a really big major knock-on effect with that line, with that pace carry on. Purple sector 2, by the way, though, for Alpha Gully. That might not be quite fully relevant. We have seen, it's Codemasters. Sometimes the colours pop up just for no reason, but a quarter of a second better than the previous run. Pulling into the pits, however, not happy enough. It must have been, I think it is an invalidation.
Which is, you are correct, invalidated on this penultimate lap, corner, I should say, and that is unfortunate, because if that was a purple sector 2, then that wasn't looking too bad, as Thomas, I believe, has just finished his lap. Might have been invalidated, so who's going to be first to come across the line? It's actually going to be the lone LE driver of Michelle, so he's the first one across. We'll need to keep our eyes peeled to see who's going to be last, because these will be the last attempts. And I'm trying to see on the track map, WOR boys quite close together. So are the Mercedes boys, so are the CPI boys, so are the LRN boys. But the JR pair are opposite sides of the track. Is that going to let them down? Is the teammates, the teamwork here, going to be the thing that lets them down? We'll have to wait and see, but maybe some people are listening into us, Scott, here, and I think maybe some people have taken on what we've said, and they're thinking that the gamble is worth it if it's going to nick them a couple of attempts, as Dara's crashed out. Dara's out of the session. Whoa, that's a big spanner. That's a big spanner in the works. I did not expect that, but he's crashed out of this session. So Dara won't be taking pole, and there won't be any teamwork there for WOR.
Another team, not going to be any teamwork. You touched as well. JR Damage has invalidated on their final run. Was looking pretty decent up until that point, so no time improvement for the GR driver currently in P5. The WR driver of Snipsen coming through this triple right-hander, 0.175 up on the previous time. That's enough to really get in contention for the top 2, top 3, but a little bit of time in this final sector could really put them in the hunt for this pole position. Round the penultimate corner then, as the checkered flag drops here in Qatar, going to be the first of the drivers on flying laps to complete said flying lap, and it is going to be a 1. Oh, it's a 1:25.7. I was hoping for a second we'd creep into the 19s. JR Tico then up to the line. Does not improve, so no improvement on the previous pole time. Snipes and Dara P2 and 3 as things stand. IRT Julian then next up to the line for IRT, looking to maybe improve ever so slightly and jump the position, maybe even pole, not quite. A 20.210 just off that pole time. His teammate Nathan JB17 then a 20.3, although it was invalid by the looks of things, or my timer has went slightly off. Igor Jelin up to P4, then his teammate of Kikgowski into the 20.2s, but not enough to beat off the top of JR Tico. And I believe, apart from Damage, who was invalidated, that will be us, Leslie.
That is it, yeah. Tico did not need to improve, and he takes pole position here at Qatar for round 5 of F2. Everyone else tried their best. We saw improvements on Kugotsky, Julian, Igor, even Snipes, I think, improved. But yeah, Dara crashing out. That's a big one. What would have Dara had to have said if he was still in this all the way to the end? Damage invalidating. Michelle also invalidating those last runs. Oh, it's very tight, but brilliant effort by everyone there, and it's JR Tico who takes pole position here on what was a very close-knit qualifying session.
Oh, absolutely, 20.184, and you look down 700s back, or just over 700s anyway, and that's P6. That is really tight at the top, and sets the precedent for this race. Of course, the rest of the pack still not a million miles off, of course, and in a track like this where track limits and little mistakes can creep in, any one of them could be looking to pounce, but it really does set us up for a brilliant race. Even looking at that mid-pack of 10th downwards, there's points available for every position here tonight, of course, and they'll be battling for every one of them. But 73 thousandths between that top 6. Tico from Kalgatski, from Julian Dara, Igor Jalin, Snipes, JR Damage, Michelle B, Nathan JB, Lorenzo round off the top 10, with Young Tug, Thomas, Alpha Goulet, Yasolta, Speklap, the last of the time setters, and then the 2 LDL drivers of Nico and Aqua, and LE Tito rounding off the grid. Now then, I suppose, Leslie, our attention turns to this race. There's a few drivers that maybe saved some softs. There's a few drivers that didn't do some laps on any tyres, of course. High temperatures here makes it a little bit easier on the tyre warming. You've got high, medium speed corners as well, helps with that. Strategy is going to be a big call tonight.
Yeah, definitely. We may even see some 2 stops, because theoretically 2 stops is the fastest strat here, but it's very hard on tyres around Qatar. We see a lot of percentage of wear on every compound, even the hards, I believe, is about 5-6%. So it's really hard. They've got to really get their strategies locked in and sort of play it by ear, really. And they'll have, some of these guys will have their engineers in their ear giving them that advice. So, and there's always the chance of a safety car. Always the chance. We've seen multiple people already spin out in that qualifying session. A lot of people invalidate. Those could turn into spins or contact. This first lap could be quite crucial. So it's going to be very tight on the tyres. But we'll let the drivers focus on that, as it's 5 lights in Qatar. And we are away. It looks like Teko has got a decent start. He's got away very well. Kokotsky tucking it inside the Alfa Romeos of the WR boys, getting very close together there. It was nearly a real-life Mercedes incident there, as they're fighting their way up through these positions. They're very tight. Early doors, you want to get these positions made up at the start before you get the DRS trains going. But no, it looks like everyone's managed to get through pretty well. There's movement further down the back, and I see Nathan's making a move up the inside of JR Damage, but he's not managed to make it stick. Damage getting the better traction out of the corner. Is Nathan going to come back at him? It doesn't look like it, but everyone so far through pretty clean, as Young Tug and Michelle are actually battling just behind. And it looks like Michelle is going to keep that position, as Young Tug trying to force his way up through the top 10. He's looking fast. Is he using his battery? Don't think so. It looks like he's got a nice bit of straight line speed there in that Aston Martin, but he continues to look at the rear of that Williams.
Yeah, pretty clean start, must be said. A little bit of contact at the back between Tito and Yasolta, just getting that sticking effect between the tyres, and Aqua and Speklab, I wonder if they were caught up with something that I maybe even didn't see myself, both into the pits on lap 1. And a very good thing you've just mentioned there is Julian goes down the inside on Dara. The straight line speed, as much as this is a high speed technical twisting circuit in some aspects, your main overtaking point is going to be turn 1. You need to maximise that straight line speed, and the only way you can do that is by discounting a bit of cornering speed. But Young Tug has had a spin on the exit of turn number 2. The Aston Martin seems to be undamaged, just losing a lot of time away from the pack. tyre strategies then, all of the grid starting on those hards aside from TGT Alpha Guli starting on the mediums, of course, Spec Lap and Aqua into the pits for mediums at the end of lap 1. But we're a couple of laps away from the DRS train, but it is already forming in essence. P1 down to P8, and look who it is. It's the two drivers from the 4 teams we mentioned in qualifying. JR, CPI, IRT and WOR, both with 2 drivers in this top 8 train, although LRN Thomas has slightly caught back up and maybe just going to ride in that 1 second gap to Nathan JB for IRT just in front. But this could get a really spicy battle, not just on track, also on the strategy as the race goes on here, Leslie.
It could indeed, as we're going to see the DRS activated. We won't see it just yet on that straight. We'll have to wait one more circuit round on this Qatar Grand Prix track. But yeah, it's very, very tightly packed at the moment. And I was watching the Academy tier before this, just to sort of have a look at the racing. I've raced here before, but I just wanted to have a look, really see how they were doing. And it's just a lot of this, a lot of very, very tight behind each other, just not really many chances to get past. And it's mainly really, you want to just be in those mirrors, you want to fill the mirrors of the driver in front, force a mistake somewhere and then pounce on it. That is the key, I think, around this circuit, or even force them into going off track and picking up a warning, because penalties here will definitely be a thing, as Igor is now pushing Dara. So Dara's looking like he's looking more in his mirrors than looking at the Mercedes of Julian ahead of him. But that's my personal view on it. I don't know if you agree, Scott, but I think it's all about forcing the errors, forcing the track limits.
Oh, absolutely. There's not real any heavy sort of dive bombish type braking zones that you can have a little go in, although saying that LRN Thomas is having a go on Nathan JB down into turn 1. That is, for me, the main overtaking point on this circuit, particularly with that DRS assist and that increase to the top speed you get. The only downfall of that, of course, when you're in a train like this, you've got it on the car in front got it on the car from it, and it's just a cycle right down the pack, which we see this DRS train going from P1 all the way down to P14. So everyone apart from Tico is going to have that straight line advantage here tonight. It is really about, like you say, filling the mirrors, putting the pressure on, getting as close to the gearbox without making contact as you can, and hope that the guy in front of you makes a little mistake, whether that's just taking a little bit too much speed through a corner, getting on the throttle ever so slightly early, or maybe just running ever so slightly wide on the mid-apex and running wide on the exit. That is where you're going to make your moves and make your punishment, as well as the pit stops. Of course, you're going to maybe get on a fresher compound, go for that undercut, get in the fresh air and try and get your toe down and jump a car or two. And that could really, really play in as well, because the rest obviously an optimal pit strategy here tonight, but with the cars and the teams so close together, there's a big chance of double stacking, which could cause the second driver a huge amount of time here.
Yeah, really good. The pit strategies is definitely one to consider, as I was seeing if Gotsky was going to be able to make a move on Tico, but I assume Tico has used a bit of battery there to stay leading this race. But yeah, one thing I also know about here, Qatar, the undercut is a strong one here. It's definitely possible to use the undercut, but it's hard because you think maybe if I use the undercut I'll get ahead, but if you're pitting a lap or two early, tyre wear wise, you're really going to struggle towards the end of this race. And I saw some people in the academy tier pitting on lap 13 from their hards onto mediums and looking to take mediums about 15-16 laps, which is just too far for me. Thankfully they got a safety car and a lot of them managed to get a fresh set of wheels, but it's an interesting one. It's really interesting. I thought maybe we might see one or two drivers opt for the two-stop, as we see LDL Aqua pick up the first penalty of the race, but I thought maybe one or two of them might go for the two-stop, but we'll see. Aqua and Gooley, although Aqua's already pitted, so Gooley may be the only one that may possibly do that. But yeah, it's so many key decisions here at Qatar because it's just such close racing. Any little mistake of error in strategy or error on track can just be so key. Look how tight we are here. We're down to P13 within a second of each other as we see LDL Aqua bringing out the safety car. He's not out of this race. Let's see if he's got any damage. So he's taken a spin in the third sector. I assume if he's got damage, he'll be coming into the pit. Yeah, he's missing a front wing, but he's deciding to carry on. Not sure that's the best decision. So now then, what happens here?
It'll be an interesting call. Of course, Alpha Gooley for TGT on the mediums. I'd be surprised we don't see him commit to the two-stop. I think Aqua, as well as Spec Lab, Aqua's just playing it safe here. He wants to make sure that he's on the lead lap. He doesn't want the risk coming into the pits. A few cars stay out and he maybe ends up a lap down behind the safety car and then really having to rely on a bit of luck. He'll wave the toddling round without the front wing, see if the leaders pit, wait for them to catch up to the safety car and know that he's safely on the lap. Spec Lap choosing to go a little bit different with that. This could be a risk for the LRN driver if he can't get out of the pits quick enough, or if a few of the leaders don't come in. A few little baits and switches from some. Gautsky, though, is into the pits for CPI. The only one off the front pack aside from JR Damage, and then a flurry of cars further behind, all filing in. And there's exactly what I was on about with the lap car scenario. LRN Spec Lap could find himself a lap down by just 2 car lengths, and crucially in a position in that train between P2 and P3, and that's what Aqua was trying to avoid. A flurry of cars though into the pits. All the hard runners going to the mediums from P9 downwards now, and Alpha Gooley going for the hard, so expect them all to be committed to the two-stop. And maybe our top 8 are going to just try and ride this out and try and the safety car period, stretch these hards a little bit longer and go for that one stop. The only risk, of course, here, Leslie, they're going to be a mighty difference in the pace on the initial restart, and they could find themselves getting eaten up.
They could indeed. It's very interesting to see that of the 4 teams we spoke about, the only team that hasn't split the strategies now from the safety car is WOR. Darrett and Snipes both opting to stay out. Interesting. But the other teams have opted to sacrifice a driver each into going on to the two-stop. So this is really strategies are now coming into play. As I was talking about it before the safety car came out, strategies really now are a little bit all over the place. And like you said, pace difference on these tyres now will be huge. And of course the guys that have just pitted onto mediums can just go straight back onto another set of mediums after this. So it will be interesting to see how this race pans out. But the safety car has definitely thrown a bit of drama into this race already.
It's a very early one as well, coming out on, I believe it was lap 6, although we do have a late call in for the pit. That is what is the lap car of LRN Spec Lap, and does retire in the pits. It's never a nice thing to see when, you know, seeing the driver made a mistake, but that was a mistake on their part just to come in early. I can understand they were very close to making it out in time, but maybe worth going that extra lap and pit in. But again, I think we've all been there. I know I've been there before. You see the safety car, you dive into the pits and you don't realise it's maybe going to pull you out in the long run. So unfortunate to see for LRN. They still do have one runner in this race, of course, and they are, LRN Thomas, running in an 8P3 as things stand, so things not completely over and done for them. Aqua then, the last of the cars to catch up. It might be a little bit tight if he's going to make it at the end of this lap, so we could see one more under the safety car, of course, and should be green flag racing by lap number 10. 29 laps in this race, however, we're not even a third of the way there, and we've already got all this drama Not much in the way of overtakes, of course, just due to the nature of the track, but this should really put a spin on things with the different tyre compounds, with the different strategy options here. And crucially, the way the teamwork dynamic might end up playing. Like you say, 3 of those 4 top teams going into this event, splitting the strategy. WOR, we've seen some great racing from them, some great team play by them. So how will that work out for Snipes and Dara? Of course, they've raced together in this competition in the previous weeks. So there'll be a good little bit of teamwork going in there. I'd be surprised if not. Dara, though, speaking of which, must have had a little bit of a disconnect there, just rejoining the session.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that. He sort of had it all, crashed out in quali, left the session moments ago, but has now successfully joined back, which is good to see. We never want to see someone's race ruined by a disconnection, and there we are, he's back in his car. But yeah, exactly like you said, the strategies like WR are now, they're all in now, and I'm not sure why Aqua hasn't caught up. I believe, yeah, that's a strange one. He was coasting there a little bit, I'm sure, for the remainder, the half left of that lap. Not sure what was going on there, but WR have now bitten the bullet, and Snipes is coming in, and he's going to be putting on a set of medium tyres. So they have now split the strategy. Is that a little bit too late though? Because he's going to be coming out in P16. He's going to have, compared to the guys they were racing, Nathan, Thomas now in their damaged Gogotsky, he's got a good 5 or so drivers in between that he's going to have to deal with now. So is it a little bit too late to be changing the strategy there?
I wonder if it's just that, maybe a case of thinking that the initial safety car was too early for whatever their desired strategy with the mediums was, and maybe just with it running on extra laps thinking, right, it's going to lose me a few positions, but it's going to save me that little bit of tyre wear. And of course it's not a great deal of tyre wear under a safety car, but that is the only reason I can think, or whether it was just a reactive decision. We are both on the same strategy here. What if it's the wrong strategy? Yes, I'm going to be a few cars further down the pack, but no one from qualifying, maybe backing themselves to have that pace. It is, I would say, at least 6 positions further down the field than Snipes would have been if he had came in with the initial flurry of pit stops. I would say he was ahead of Nathan and Thomas, but in that battle with Kitgautsky and damage. So looking, if he'd pit at the initial timings somewhere between P8 and 10, finds himself down in P16. Of course, the freshest off the medium tyres, so in theory should have the quickest set of rubber on a car out there. And we'll find out very shortly, I suppose, Leslie, because safety car is in this lap. Lap 10, we'll see green flag racing once again.
Finally seeing green flag racing. I was getting very bored of Bert Mylander in that safety car, so off he goes ahead into the pit lane. Some of you may even notice the pit lane is completely different entry compared to real life if you just watched the Qatar Grand Prix, but that's irrelevant because we're going to be getting back underway. Tycho not gone yet. Oh, people, we need to be careful here. Oh, there's a few back runners there that thought he had gone. He still hasn't gone, weaving away, and now he goes, gets a good run off Dara, although already on the back of Julian. Not sure he's in the position to make a move though. I'm going to go to Young Tug because he is making a move. Up the inside. Oh, and there's been Julian. Julian's been tagged somewhere. He's squirreled off on the inside. I think it was with Dara because Dara's dropped as well. The WR and RT man coming together. RT's gone off the track and we are back under a safety car. My.
The age-old saying, safety cars can sometimes breed safety cars. Dara without a front wing. I'm not too sure if that was connection with RVL Yasaltar going. I'm not quite sure what happened during turn 1 when they get forced out or losing traction. Julian coming off on the exit off turn 6, the little kind of hairpin, and then it was just chaos for the second half of the pack. And, well, we got a sector of green flag racing back under Bert Maylander's control here. And this puts another spanner in the works for the strategy, I suppose. Do the front four now pull the trigger and come into the pits, or do they double down on their decision to stay out on those hards and try and effectively, well, more than effectively, I would say, commit to the one-stop? Dara is going to have to pit onto, I would imagine, a fresh set of mediums, and potentially, by the looks of things, there seemed to be quite a bit of carbon fibre flying in that second part of the pack. We could see quite a few drivers come on in here for a set of tyres and a wing change. All of the front four bar JR Tico, though, into the pits.
Yeah, Tico looking like he just wants to keep hold of track position. I'm sort of wondering what people are going to go on to here. So we've got Igor going on to the mediums. I was wondering, are people going to even try like doing a double soft stint? It might be pushing it. I'm just thinking out loud at the moment, but everyone does go on to the fresh mediums, so that has spiced it up even more. And Tico, the one driver yet to pit. Oh no, Salter also yet to pit. So yeah, all the front runners apart from Tico have now pitted. So this is going to be one to try and keep a good eye on, and we should hopefully get back racing, not this lap, but the end of the next lap. While we're here, though, thank you everyone for tuning in. We've got about 20 people currently watching. If you could like the stream, that would be incredible. Give us some comments as well. Give us some predictions. What else is going to happen in this race? If you predict another safety car and it happens, I will be annoyed. Yeah. Also subscribe to League Racing TV. It helps us out a lot. And I just wanted to say something as well. It was World Mental Health Day yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw it, Scott, but there was a great little advert on it by Norwich City Football Club. Really, really powerful message. If you are struggling on mental health or know someone who is struggling, please speak out or speak to that person. Not all mental health problems you can see. Some people will carry on their lives as normal, but inside struggling with things. Others, you'll be able to see it as plain on their face as anything. So yeah, just raising a bit of awareness for that. So please look after your loved ones, reach out to people, ask them how they are, just talk to someone. But back to the racing. Safety car. Someone else is coming in towards the back. It's Gully, he was one of those first safety car pit stops, maybe? I'm really struggling to keep up.
Shed a little light on the Gully situation. I did notice it came into the pits there for a wing change off of the hards. Started on the mediums, did 6 laps in them, onto a set of hards at the safety car, back into the pits there for a wing change, and back onto the same set of mediums. That's meaning they went for a softer tyre compound. They've got 4 sets of softs that they've maybe used, at least 3 of them I would say, in qualifying. So opting to go back onto the initial set of mediums, come back onto the hards, and then saving that soft rubber from maybe towards the end of the race. Knowing, of course, they're going to have to change their wing, they're going to have to change their tyre just to not take the hit on the tyre, and realistically only losing out 1 position. So that is what's going on down there with TGT Alpha Gully. I'll just jump in, just so I don't seem a bit heartless. I did see the video by Norwich, and that was a cracker, and everything you've said, bang on. I think we speak from everybody from EML and hopefully the wider F1 community that it's a more common thing than people maybe think. And trust me when I say there'll be plenty of inboxes, plenty of doors, and plenty of ears open. But the race here heating up in dramatic fashion with these safety cars. And a little key thing is there anybody else in that situation that maybe doesn't have that secondary set of medium tyres? I think majority of the cars that have the pit, particularly Igor in P10 down, have used at least 1 or 2 sets of the medium, so that sort of confirms that. But is that maybe what's affecting decisions of likes of Tico and Salter? We'll find out shortly, of course, maybe towards the end of this Grand Prix, if there is a late safety car or a late pit stop for a soft, if that has any impact. But lap 13, unlucky for some here, Leslie. Green flag racing.
Well, you said it now, Scott. the commentator's curse and the number 13. Oh dear, oh dear. But Tico is the man to get us underway once again for the third time, for him and for everyone else. When's he going to go this time? And how's he going to do on the equal oldest set of tyres currently on the grid? And he gets away well, but he's backed Nathan up into his teammate Damage. Maybe a bit of teamwork played there. Ooh, that was close. Damage right on the back of Nathan, managing to avoid any contact. There's a bit of movement down the back. We'll get onto those movements a bit later. Nathan looking for the move up into the lead. The hards of Tico not working out as well as they should be. Damage up into second as well. A bit of swapping there between the JR boys, and Tico is dropping further back. Thomas getting ahead. Snipes also behind him, but he's got Nico looking up the inside of him, and Tico needs to be careful here that he doesn't get caught up in any unnecessary battles or even get tagged and get any damage. It's not looking great for Tico right now. Maybe he might be looking towards the pits, because the plan, definitely, whatever it was, hasn't gone to plan.
He's not the only one in the same predicament. Salter, sorry, for RVL in the exact same situation a little bit further down the pack. Just getting swallowed up by Dara, Julian, Youngtog, Kitgowski, Aqua and Tito. All of those drivers flying on through. A penalty there, though, for JR Damage. What implication could that have on later in this race? It won't be. It might be the first, or one of the first, but I don't think it'll be the last. Snipes, though, having a look on Tico, using that fresh rubber, getting a better exit down the straight with a little bit of ERS as well. And LDL Nico has said, thanks for opening the door, I'll just slide on in while I'm here on these 6-lap old hards. Yellow flag down near the back, that is RVL Lorenzo off at turn 1. Thankfully, though, for the sake of our sanity, green flag racing that's still ongoing here in Qatar. And Igor Jelin, a big shout out to him, and Tito and Katgowski, to be fair. They've had a belter of a run through this field already on the restart. Igor up into P7 on those freshest of the mediums out on track, and looking to make it P6 around the outside of JR Tito in this middle sector. That'll turn to the inside, of course, and gets the move done. Next up for Tico to defend, it's Tito and Katgowski.
Yeah, it's Katgowski actually jumps Tito first, and then he's going to go for the second move on Tico round the outside. He's got to be careful here. That might be a track limit. He's gone outside the white lines. He'd be crossing his fingers that hasn't come up for him, but he's being held now by Tico in these hard parts where it's difficult to overtake. Wants to get round the JR man, but can't do so. Nowhere to go there. On the straight, though, you can see the difference in the tyre life, but he's got to be careful, because Tito is also looking to come up the inside. He could be making it 3 wide. He's not, but he's up the inside of Tico. It's Tico versus Tito. It's very hard to say. It's not as hard to watch. Tito gets round Tico up into P8.
It's normally just me that makes the mispronunciation tonight. It must be something in the water this week. Although saying that, I'm not even going to have a go at trying to pronounce some of those sentences you just said. Next up then, Youngtug having a look at Tico. A little look for a second there round about the outside of turn 6, but you can just see on exit how much more grip and much life is in these younger mediums. Though, speaking of that, Youngtug is that commentator's curse. I'm going to apologise just in case, picks up a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits for the third time. Into 10 then, the left-hander. We've seen a little bit of a move by the likes of Katgowski and co. And Tito, of course, on the exit here, the last lap, getting a run up for the triple right-hander. Not going to happen this time for Youngtug, and has to settle back in behind. And it's crucial for the likes of Youngtug, for the likes of Aqua, Julian, Dara, Michelle B, to get past this older hard runner as soon as they can. Well, that's just going to make things very easy. So Tico into the pits here at the end of lap 14. Mediums to the end could be the call in now for the JR driver. And, well, we'll see how that plays out in the long run. We expect to see a few more cars follow into the pits, of course. It could be a bit of a stretch, particularly for these front three, as Thomas has made the move on Nathan for P2, but Damage with a 1.2 second lead. It's a chance to maybe ride off into the distance as Thomas picks up a 3-second time penalty. I'm not taking credit for that bit one, but there's definitely something going on with the commentating cross tonight, Leicester?
Yeah, I'll agree. I'll let you off on that one. But yeah, we are racking up on the track limit penalties now, as we have 5 drivers, and 2 of them of which are right at the head of the field. So that could take effect on the final standings at the end of this race, the final result, I should say. But yeah, Tico pitting off of those hards, but has the damage been done? I'm not having a play on words with his teammate in first. I'm just talking about the fact that he didn't pit under either of the safety cars, because he is now way off the back, as Nathan, now the top 3 all having a time penalty, and now Snipes is looking like the man in control. Can he stay away from getting the time penalties at this point in the race? If you're seeing all these other drivers with time penalties, you're thinking, if I just keep it clean, I'm in the money for this one. As Snipes looks to go around the outside of Nathan. Nathan's going to push him wide. And you know what? I think that was fair. I think that was fair from Nathan. Was aggressive in his defence and said to Snipes, no, you're going to have to do a bit better than that to get past this Mercedes. So Snipes falls into 4th as LDL Nico unfortunately disconnects. What is going on tonight? There's a few things happening here with a few drivers lagging out of the session, so that's going to damage Nico's race. LRN Thomas has now left the session. It's not looking pretty, Scott, but the rest of the drivers will just get on with it and they'll just take advantage, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see always. They're going to lose a little bit of time here, depending on how quick they can get back into the session. And not the first driver to lag out tonight, of course. The majority of the field, I haven't seen anything in the way of desync or the likes of that, so seems to be alright. Hopefully no more issues on that part. Julian, well, that was all going on, made the move on Young Tug. There's been a bit of kind of moving up and down through the field here. And Julian making advantage of the newer mediums, trying to get back up into this front pack snipe. So he could win it on the count back with penalties, of course, if things ended as they stood. But he's not going to leave any of that to chance. Up into P2, Ego Jalen following him through, getting past Nathan JB as...
oh no.
I'm not too sure what's going on here. There's another 2 cars disconnected from the session.
Yeah, I just had a bit of a weird lag spike on my end, seeing Nathan sort of jutter around the place before he left. As Gully has now left, this is not looking good. We may be getting some session issues here, which may damage the result of this race. We will carry on as best as we can. For anyone watching, as we get another one, it's not looking pretty as Igor goes as well. We may have to go to the Discord.
I do have some news from the Discord. Apparently,
oh, I've gone.
A PSN issue.
Yep, I've gone.
I've gone as well.